Welcome to the Modern Insurance Agents Podcast. I'm David, and this is Elle, your host, and we have a very special guest today, Dan Farnsworth, that we look forward to diving into how he took a 5-year goal and was able to accomplish that in 1 year. Welcome to the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast.
We're your hosts, David and Elle Denning.
What happens when a millennial couple dives headfirst into the insurance world, scales $1 million remote business, and decides to share the journey with the world?
You get the Modern Insurance Agent.
Here, we reveal the messy, magical, and sometimes hilarious realities of building a business and a life you love.
From traveling the globe to building remote teams. Yes, even working remotely on top of a mountain in the Philippines. We're sharing insights, strategies, and plenty of laughs to help agents and entrepreneurs succeed.
Because, let's face it, success isn't just about hitting numbers.
It's about designing a life that works for you.
So let's dive in and build something extraordinary together. Everyone, we are super excited to dive in today. This is actually one of the first interviews we're doing on the Modern Insurance Agent Podcast with our very established and amazing guest joining us, Dan Farnsworth. So, Dan, I would love if you give us just a little bit of intro for everybody on who you are, and look forward to have just a really amazing conversation today.
Awesome. Well, thanks, David, and thank you, Elle, for having me on. I just want to start by saying this has been really an amazing journey for me. I served 23 years in the United States Navy. I guess wear that on my sleeve here, right? But obviously was very proud, coming out of the military service. I retired just this past year, in fact. And really didn't see myself taking this direction in life. I kind of was, as I was nearing retirement, was just kind of going through what I would call sort of the cookie cutter model for, military retirees. And I was negotiating with, government contracts and sort of leveraging the security clearance and, the things that we just kind of do, right? I was kind of subsequently recruited into the industry about a year ago, unexpectedly, of course. And that's, as through a series of events, that's kind of led me to where I am today. So right now I own the agency that is featured, Victory X Financial. I founded the agency about 6 months, ago. And prior to that was just kind of doing my own independent agent sales. But just recently have started into the business full time and have been pretty successful so far. So that's kind of, I'm here in Virginia. My wife and I live here in Suffolk in the Hampton Roads area. My kids live here, and we're getting along great, and everything has been really good so far.
Love it, and super proud of even what you've already put into place in a short period of time, and look forward to diving into that, but really excited about everything that's up and coming in that future journey and growth of Victory X Financial, and obviously have a very much have a passion for what you're doing as well. So definitely look forward to diving into that. So Elle, you excited to kick off?
Yeah, I am. And Dan, I do want to thank you so much for your service. And I'm really excited to learn a little bit about this journey. So why insurance? I mean, out of all of the, career paths that you could have done, what was it about insurance that really drew you to the industry?
So this has actually been, it's been kind of a passion of mine for a number of years. I tell clients the story, if they're interested, of course. About 15 years ago, I was approached by an agency that was based out of Salt Lake City called Prosperity Economics. And I had paired up with them by kind of following a series of leads through Pamela Yellen's Bank on Yourself program back then. As a result of that, I was paired up with the agency. They started to kind of teach me about infinite banking. And before that, I knew absolutely nothing about life insurance. Other than, okay, it exists, and I had SGLI at the time, which was my service members group life insurance coverage with the military. But through their mentorship and, starting my first whole life policy that was structured under the Nelson Nash model for infinite banking, I started to learn some of the nuances about, what we can do with life insurance and really the universal power of it. And the ability to grow wealth, not just to provide a death benefit, but actually to grow wealth using these strategies. As a result of that, at the time, I had been, just kind of doing what, other service members do, putting money aside into the TSP, saving for later. But after starting that policy and kind of seeing what I could do with this, I ended up pulling a lot of that money out and just reinvesting it into life insurance. And I know we don't like to use the word invest, but, it's just basically just using life insurance as a wealth building tool. Again, didn't really see myself getting into the industry until I was approached, just through, I think, social media channels by an independent agency here in Virginia. And, we kind of started talking a little bit, and, they were obviously looking for agents. I didn't have a license and really had no interest at the time, but I thought, okay, well, based on what I know about the products and the fact that I really believe in this, I could see myself, doing this. I had certainly encouraged other people over the years to do the same. So, okay, I could see maybe kind of dipping my toe in the water and, doing this part-time and just kind of seeing where it went. I think as many agents realize when they first start out, our concept of what it's going to look like and what it actually is are two different things. When I first got it,
I think that's true for most people.
Yeah. I think when I first got into it, it was, you kind of picture this, okay, you have this line of clients that's standing outside the door and they're just waiting to come in so that I can help them, right?
Exactly how this industry works, right? Yeah.
It's, that's exactly what it is, right? Well, found out kind of quick that it wasn't so much.
It's both rewarding and challenging, right?
It definitely is. So, as I sort of came to that realization, of course, I had that initial, wave of reality that sort of swept over and basically said, yeah, this is not exactly what you had pictured in the beginning. You don't have just this magical, crowd of clients that can't wait for your services. You have to go out and find them. And so through kind of a series of disappointments and some encouraging conversations, I kind of found my way to, becoming more interested in the industry aspects itself. And then through those channels, as I became more involved and kind of, jumped around between some IMOs, I found your guys' agency. And, since then, since really making that commitment to, increasing my, organic presence on social media, to really embracing this idea of doing this full time and really helping the clients. My target clients are mostly military veterans like myself, who I know can really benefit from these programs. So far, it's been an extremely rewarding experience. And with your agency, with Jumpstart Go and the Closers Click, I've really been able to refine that messaging and refine that target audience and kind of find my place where I believe that I belong in the industry, to bring this, to bring these type of policies and to bring the power of these products to an audience, to a target market that I really feel, not only could benefit from it, but really needs it, and that's been extremely rewarding so far.
Yeah, to be able to help serve an industry and people that you both know intimately and are passionate about is hugely rewarding, right? Because it probably doesn't feel a lot like work some days when you're getting to help people and help them put these things that you're so passionate about in place and knowing the difference it can make for them. And I would love to, come back and we'll talk about kind of the birth of Victory X Financial and who you're serving and putting all that stuff in place. But I'd love to come back to the transitioning out of the military and kind of leading up to that and during that transition, what were some of the main kind of thoughts, concerns with you and your family at that point? Because I mean, that's a big transition.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I wouldn't, regard myself as being that much different than any other, military retirees in that sense. I shared the exact same concerns as most service members do, coming up on retirement. We have very stringent military contracts, and so therefore you really have to, you have to kind of plan out your financial future based around, you can't just leave the job and quit whenever you want, right? You're bound by a contract as to how long you have to serve. And so, of course, in that capacity, was surrounded by a number of defense contractors. And I ended up, negotiating for a position that I took right after I retired, working full time on a Department of Navy contract. And I did that for, I think, about 3 or 4 months. And, for all intents and purposes, it was a very well-paying job. I mean, it had benefits associated. It was a guaranteed salary with built-in, raises every year, really. And so there were a lot of folks, I'm sure, that would probably look at that and go, well, why did you leave that? You were working 10 minutes away from your house. You had a guaranteed salary that was guaranteed to increase every year. Why would you walk away from that? And the answer really is I can't offer anything except for my heart wasn't in it. This is where my passion lies. This is what makes me happy. And it's what motivates me, to get up and work hard. And I knew leaving that, that cushy, nice, stable environment with the big salary and everything else. I knew that the expectations for my work were going to be twice as much, right? I knew I was going to have to work twice as hard in this business to be able to make it with no guarantees whatsoever. Total sea of uncertainty, and really building this from the ground up. But I was willing to take that on because, again, this is what motivates me. It's the idea of being able to be my own boss, to run my own business, to be able to support the kind of people that I feel like I mix well with, and that I kind of am that are like me, that are people that maybe they start out a little bit younger in their during their military careers, or during their law enforcement even, or first responder type careers, or maybe they're already retired, and we just kind of have that connection. But they're people that I feel like I belong with. And so, yes, I mean, I was willing to walk away from all of that to really do this full time, because in my mind, once I kind of crossed that threshold and I knew that this is what I wanted to do, they could have paid me $500,000 or more a year on that contract. And all I would have seen it as was a distraction to being able to do this, because this is where I want to be.
I love it. And that's so true. And I think a lot of our listeners here can relate with that of, maybe their own stories and journeys of how they got into the insurance industry and entrepreneurship. And, question asked kind of about that, and maybe some of the fears, concerns you had, but also, like, I've heard the military is like just a tiny bit structured. Like, there's a little bit of order to your day, just a tiny bit, right?
Sure.
Of moving into entrepreneurship in this side, in this industry where things are not, hey, I wake up, I do this, I'm here at this time. So what was that kind of like as both a transition into kind of being in charge of your own destiny here a little bit, and kind of moving from that path of very ordered structure, I knew exactly what to expect, where to go, to I'm building a business here.
Absolutely. No, and I won't lie, it was a little scary, and it still is. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, and this idea of kind of forging your own way is something that was, I mean, for lack of a better term, very foreign to me up to this point. I enjoyed, 23 plus years of, a very structured environment. And then also just the nature of being, in private business, being an entrepreneur is very different from what you experience, kind of working up through the ranks in the military. I was just having this conversation the other day and, explaining, I said, in the military, people do things because they have to, right? So when you're having, if you're having a senior to subordinate conversation, people just kind of, say yes and do what you want because there are consequences if they don't. In private business, such is not the case. There's a very, there's an additional challenge, an additional dynamic to that where you have to, people aren't just automatically going to comply with you because you said so. You told them to do something and they have to comply. So your messaging has to change. The way that you interact with the client is very different from the way that you would interact with, a military subordinate or even a senior for that matter. So, I had to just adjust to that. And that definitely has taken some work. And it's something that I'll probably be working on for, the rest of my career as a life insurance agent, to be honest. Because I think that, we all, are kind of focused on getting better in a lot of different aspects. And that's one of the areas where, where I'll just have this sort of continued focus is to really improve on that. And then also to, but at the same time to leverage, my experience and the leadership, lessons that I learned, throughout my career. And really just, to embrace the camaraderie that I have now with the veteran community to help sort of, bring this message into the veteran community, to help, not only sell the product, but, to really help veterans protect their own, their families and their financial futures.
Love it.
I'd love to dive into the niche marketing aspect of what you've done with your agency, Dan, because I think that, well, first off, that we work with a lot of agents and we highly, highly encourage them to find a niche that they really resonate with, a community or a group of people that they feel like they can connect really well with and kind of use that as the anchor to their marketing. And this is something that you have done so well, and really branding yourself. And I'd love for you to share, was this always in your mind that you wanted to really work with this particular niche of retired veterans, or did it come about? Was there at any point that you were maybe scared about niching down to such it's not really a small group of people, but a lot of times there's fear there too around niching down. I'm going to miss out. I can help everybody with my products. And I just really would like to hear your journey in that. Was it always something that you wanted to do? I want to serve this particular niche.
I wouldn't say that when it came to the insurance piece, in the beginning, I didn't really have that clear path going forward. Now, going back about 10 years, I had what, I guess ultimately amounted to a failed venture in private business. I actually owned a coffee company out here in Virginia Beach for about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
It was a partnership. The company was called the Threaded Barrel Coffee Company. And we kind of, embraced that same niche back then, with the military veteran community. It was myself and another retired Navy veteran that owned the company. And it was very well accepted at the time. And I felt like we were making some strides, in progress, but, some things happened with the partnership and it just didn't quite work out in the end. But the takeaway lesson for me was that I really did enjoy working with, the veteran, the first responder, patriot type community, much in the same way as, some of our competitors at the time, Black Rifle Coffee and some of these others have really reached out. When I first started in insurance, of course, I didn't quite put two and two together. Like many agents do, I kind of was just under the impression that I was just going to sell insurance to anybody that wanted it, right? Yeah. And I found, through obviously, your guys' coaching, and then, just kind of, based on my own experience, that, if you're trying to sell to everybody, then you're really selling to nobody. And I think that that's where, being able to refine this sort of target market and this audience, not only one, it's helped me to, really improve and refine my own messaging, but two, to be able to find common ground with the clients in a way that allows me to build that connection, that I couldn't otherwise have with other clients. I think there are a lot of insurance agents that dream of working with, multi-billion-dollar clients, the ones that have these huge accounts, and that's great. I mean, if that's your thing, then, that's awesome. For me, though, I just kind of like the idea of being able to have a comfortable conversation with veteran clients and with people that kind of have that like-minded, connection, because it just kind of adds to the comfort and the relaxation factor in how we do business. I don't have to, necessarily put on a front. I don't have to even really put on a suit and tie to do what I do. The clients that I serve appreciate my approach to this, that we can have, casual conversations the same way we would when we were in uniform, just, shooting the breeze, talking about the military life, being able to make those connections, talking about being deployed overseas and in the combat scenarios that we've all been involved in. I think it just really helps us to, again, make that solid connection. And then that just kind of opens the door to additional conversation that we have about these type of products.
I love it. And I love that you're talking about that common ground in, especially in your conversations with clients. And this is something that I think that makes your marketing so strong too, because you can speak from a place of experience, and that people that are finding you on social media or seeing an advertisement from you, they likely feel that they know you and that you know them before you're even jumping into that first conversation that you're having with them face to face or on Zoom. Do you think that that's the case, that they feel like you guys have this sort of rapport that's already built before you even actually have that first conversation with each other?
Oh, absolutely. There have been a couple of things that I've found, especially after, officially joining the veteran ranks. Of course, when we're in uniform, we sort of colloquially refer to ourselves as veterans, but we're not officially, because we're not moved on yet. So, but one of the things that I've really found is, one, the veteran community really, really takes care of its own. It's a very tight-knit community. Some of my strongest centers of influence are other veterans who, when they learned, what I was doing and what I was sort of building in the industry, became immediate sources of referrals. And some of them are very, very active in having that conversation, say, hey, I know a guy that, can really help you with, as you're getting ready to retire from the military or getting ready to separate, to being able to, keep this life insurance coverage and set yourself up for a comfortable, in many cases, tax-free retirement. And then by the time, we connect, we've already sort of established that rapport. Another example of, kind of that I just recently experienced was this past Veterans Day. My wife and I, we're both veterans, in fact. We went out for our Veterans Day brunch at, one of the local pancake houses. And as we were standing in line, literally just kind of, we're struck up a conversation with some other fellow veterans. And it was like we had been friends for years. And these two veterans that we were speaking to were Vietnam veterans. They had served decades before I was even around, for that matter. So, but we had that instant bond just based on, the service that we both, our experiences and our service connections and, in many cases, serve at the same commands or, that sort of thing. So being able to establish that rapport in the beginning, I think is so important. And it's really been kind of a foundation of, what I've seen so far in terms of success with this. I think it's been a very successful model. And I think it will continue to be. I'm confident it will, at least, because again, it's, we're serving a community that, I feel connected to, and I know that has a need for what we're offering here. So.
I love it. And I want to come back to one of the very first things we mentioned, just to give some clarity for everybody. When we talked about you originally coming out of the military and starting everything, you had a 5-year vision and plan. And I would love to hear exactly what that was and kind of your vision of everything here and what that's looked like to have kind of been able to put the stuff in place and accomplish that even within the first year of that transition.
Sure. So I would say of the 5-year plan, which, admittedly didn't even come about until I was several months into this journey. Because again, I kind of came in part-time figuring it would just kind of be a pastime effort, something I could do in my off hours. As I got a little bit more experienced, and started to kind of, interact a little more in the business, I found that it can be done part-time, but you're going to have a limit on how successful you can be. And in my mind, where I saw myself having the most potential, I just wasn't going to be able to get there doing this part-time. I actually saw a meme just recently that made me think about this. It said, how many great people do you know are just doing it part-time? So that kind of stuck with me and it resonated a little bit. So as I was going along, I was just kind of, okay, well, I'm waiting for that, that magic moment when things just take off and all of a sudden I can't handle the business anymore by just being part-time. And so now I have to go full-time. Well, that day never came. Things started to pick up for sure. But I never really hit the point where I was like, oh, I just can't handle it anymore. There's just too much demand. But what I also found was that the more experience and the more successes and the more wins that I started to, kind of accumulate, the more I saw the value in it. And so I was approached, I think we were talking about this just beforehand. I was approached by an agency that did pre-need contracting for veteran funerals. And I won't say their name. They're a great agency. They offer an incredible service. But we were kind of moving towards an onboarding effort where I was going to be kind of joining them to help veterans, one, get connected with their burial benefits, their VA benefits, and then two, to fund their funerals using life insurance policies. Well, at the last second, things kind of fell through. And so I was kind of left to a couple of backup options. Of course, I probably could have continued on with my, previous government work if I'd wanted to. But at this point in the game, I said, no, that's not what I want to do. I'm committed to this at this point. I believe in this. Is it a guaranteed thing? Absolutely not. But I have faith in it. And, I'm not the most spiritual person, but, I do believe that, that God was looking out for me here and that, that there's a plan. And so I'm trying to carry that out, and I just went full speed ahead with it. And, and so far it's proven successful. What was originally thought to be sort of a 5-year transition has now turned into a 1-year transition to where I'm working full time. I'm doing almost entirely remote based business out of my home. And so far it's been pretty well embraced. Is it all sunshine and roses? Of course not. We get rejected all the time in this business. And it's very difficult, and we have a lot of competition. But I think, so far it's been very rewarding. And, I'm just looking forward to, where this is going from here, and, and how, our continued, partnership and mentorship, with Jumpstart Go, how that's really going to help this to blossom, in the years to come.
I love it. I'm looking forward to that too, as Elle and the team. And I want to talk a little bit, so you've made the transition out of the military. You had that contract. You were looking to build and scale this, and this is what you were passionate on. But how did you originally, kind of find us? What was kind of attracted you to maybe growing or putting things in place in the business in this way, and kind of your thoughts and views on coaching, training, and people help guide you on a path in general?
Sure. So I believe I found you guys through some of your Facebook advertising. Of course, I think pretty much every agent goes through the social media transition phase, where all of a sudden your entire Facebook feed becomes nothing but insurance stuff, right? And that's just kind of an evolution that happens. I mean, that's old brother Zuckerberg is has it in for all of us. So when I started seeing the ads, it was at a time when I was starting to realize that, just trying to figure this out on my own, or as I did, unfortunately experience, trying to just buy leads, was not proving to be as successful as originally touted. And so I knew that I needed mentorship. And I knew that I couldn't just do this on my own. And I didn't have anybody in my immediate support network that had the level of experience that the Closers Click and Jumpstart Go really offered. Now, admittedly, I did reach out to a couple of additional agencies. But what I really found with your guys' agency is really that personal connection factor. Some of these others I just kind of felt were, they just didn't have, the personalities, the approach, the business model. It just, something just didn't add up. The chemistry just wasn't there. And I actually had a Zoom call with one of these other, marketing agencies, mentoring type thing. That was, I kind of walked away with kind of that icky feeling, like, oh man, I hope they never contact me again. Because, it was a high pressure sale. It was, very, very expensive, and really with, again, with no real guarantees as to what the outcomes were going to be. What I like about, your guys' model is it really focuses on, those building blocks, starting at the base, defining your target market, understanding that we're not just out here trying to sell to anybody that wants life insurance. We have to, build a target base so that we can, really refine our messaging and refine our strategies for bringing this message to the client around that target base. And without that mentorship, I never would have found that. So it's been very successful in that regard so far. And, certainly I was very fortunate that, again, that just kind of happened to pop up on the feed there. And, after a little bit of research, I was willing to pull the trigger on it.
I love it. And that's actually a perfect transition. And yes, I would love to get into talking a little bit on social and the referral partner relationships, some of that. But I would like to talk about what that looked like kind of the birth of Victory X Financial, like why Victory X, and kind of your vision for that initially, but also like as of now going forward, what does your vision look like for that as well? Because I absolutely love your focus, how much of you put into this, and can tell you're really passionate about it, which is important. When you're passionate, it doesn't feel quite like the grind on that side, because you're going to fulfill your own vision and bring it to life. So tell me a little bit about the birth of Victory X Financial. Sure.
So I kind of knew early on that if I was going to be, successful in this effort, that one of the best ways that, I mean, what worked for us before with the coffee company, in fact, was sort of this branding effort. It was a way to kind of, you know, create an additional layer of branding that really spoke to the underlying message. The underlying message is, you know, we're for veterans. You know, we have, you know, we you know, we're with you because we are you, you know, and we understand you. And so that's what I think I was able to envelop. The name Victory X, you know, kind of evolved just sort of out of more or less a selection process. But I think when I saw it and I kind of received that as a suggestion, I said yes. I like the X factor because the X can mean whatever you want it to mean. Of course, everybody knows what victory means, and you know, and that seems to have really appealed to the client base so far. But the X, you know, really is kind of the, you know, that aspect that sort of connects it to a variety of different, you know, of different scenarios, I guess you could say, but all within, you know, the target market itself. And you know, so far we've gone through several revisions of the logo. We've gone through, you know, the development of the website, and I've had a lot of professional mentorship along the way. I can't lay claim to having, you know, pioneered a great portion of this, because a lot of it has been, you know, at the prompting of coaches and people that, you know, that have a lot more experience in this than I do, and that were able to impart, you know, a lot of this knowledge and a lot of these strategies. And so that I was able to comprehend it and really kind of put the wheels in motion. I think one of the things that does kind of hold people back, and it was for me as well, is the idea, you know, when you go into private business, you find out real soon or real early on that if you don't invest anything into the business, you can't really expect anything back. And that's where I was kind of finding myself, unfortunately. You know, I was limited in my capabilities. I didn't have any resources, or very few at least. And so I knew that the only way I was going to move the ball down the field was to just basically make an investment up front. And yes, I mean, that can be a little costly. I mean, in some cases, it can mean tens of thousands of dollars in the beginning. But the prospect for being able to build something that really has that rewarding value, it demands it. It just absolutely requires it. Because if you don't, you're just going to be stuck in that same boxed, you know, existence, where you're just not going to be able to break that next glass ceiling and get to the next level, because you just won't have the reach. And not only will you not have the reach, but you won't have the skills and the know-how to even be able to connect with the audience, even if you do acquire the reach at that point.
Love it.
So when it's so important to invest in yourself. I know David and I, we do a running tally sometimes of how much we've invested, but
It's almost scary.
I think it's over 350,000. Yeah, it is. I think it's over 350,000 at this point that
It's
we've
over a house's worth. Yeah.
just invested
Yep.
into, like, coaching, mentorship, masterminds. That doesn't include investing in like team or even like agencies at this point. But
We're at a small country at this point. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Right. One of the things that I think also holds people back is like they don't always trust their own decision making. Like, are they making the right decisions for their business? They know that they need to invest. They know they probably need a mentor. They need a coach. They need help. But as you mentioned, there's so many vendors. There's so many options. There's so many different directions that you could go. I'd love to hear about your decision-making process. How has that been for you? What has that journey been like? And at the end of the day, how do you trust yourself that you're making the right decisions for your business?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no. And I would preface it by saying, I'm no exception, when it comes to just natural human tendencies. I question my decision making just about every day. And so,
well, as you should, good business owners should, but not to the point that it keeps them. Yeah, not to the point that it keeps them from taking action. And I think that's kind of that's the hiccup. It's kind of that we get stuck in that analysis paralysis of there's so many decisions or so many different options to go. So, yeah, what's your thinking process behind that?
So, yeah, I mean, I would say, going the hardest struggle that I've had has been in relation to that. Exactly. It's having the confidence and keeping that optimism. In this business, I mean, with closing rates being what they are, we do face a huge amount of rejection, and maybe even more so than maybe other industries. I mean, I don't know. I haven't worked in too many other private industries, so I couldn't really compare it. But I do know that it can be very tough, and some of those deals can be some real heartbreakers because you really feel like you had that connection and everything was going along smooth, and then something just kind of fell apart. And I think it's a natural tendency for anyone to sit there and question, well, what did I do? How did I mess this up? And what could I have done? And then you kind of beat yourself up and you go through that cycle. But where I think that, again, not to sit there and sound like a broken record, but where I think that we really can, create that system of enhancement, for the optimism is by, reaching out to agencies like yours, where, we partner ourselves with mentors and people that have been there, that understand, what it's like on the other side of success, understand, where your goals are and how to get there, and really to kind of provide that roadmap. And I'll be honest, I mean, this has been a huge, huge source of confidence for me. There is no way, I will be the first to admit, there is no way I ever would have, made, such a bold decision to go full time with this had it not been for the support system that I feel like I have now. That's really helped me to, build out my own processes, understand, where my weaknesses are, understand, where my strengths are and how I can really capitalize on those and how I can improve upon, those other weaknesses. This has been a really enlightening experience and very educational, in that sense. And I really appreciate, where it's come and really where it's going.
And I love that confidence growth, because I remember the conversation we had initially and when we first chatted and talked and about the program, about your vision and everything. And it was kind of like, well, I hope this works and putting that in place. I remember like, and how long kind of take to progress. And it was kind of like, jumping in, and, to really that level of confidence today and seeing the growth, both in the brand and what you're putting in place. But one of the things you mentioned earlier, which I think a lot of agents come in this industry and have that experience with, is the lead side. And especially with kind of some of the experience you had on that, I'd love to hear some feedback on maybe some of the challenges you found there and stuff on there. And then also from the opposite on the social media referral partner side, we'll hear a little bit of some of the differences there that you found, and even what even led you to make that jump.
Sure. Yeah. And the lead side, I think, has been, as it is with I think most new agents, that's probably been the biggest challenge. And certainly in the beginning, it was the biggest point of frustration, which is kind of what led me to, the relationship that we now have. Right. I kind of went through that natural progression, I think, of, in early agenthood, where, you kind of get with an agency, an IMO that's partnered with a lead vendor, and they say, yeah, you start buying these leads, and, and the leads are, of course, they're all cultivated, right? They're all, ready to buy, and they're expecting your phone call. And then you find out that,
is that the reality?
No. Surprise. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Gotcha. And you're just watching, dollars upon dollars just go down the drain, when it's like, I just paid how much for this lead, and the person wouldn't even answer the phone, or when they did, they're like, who are you? So I just wasn't getting anywhere with that. Cold calling, same thing. I just, that was something that I really, really struggled with. The idea of trying to just make an instant connection with somebody, some random stranger over the phone. I just, to me, that's just not my thing. What I found, however, kind of through the mentorship program, and as I've kind of progressed with all this, is that, building out those centers of influence, which I never would have had, admittedly. It would have taken me years probably to find my way in that regard. But building out those centers of influence really kind of translates to what I would consider to be a much larger warm market. And I know that that's kind of what your guys' business model kind of gets after, is really expanding that, that organic warm market, so that when you're having those initial conversations with your potential clients, it's not just a cold call. Hey, I'm an insurance guy. Would you like to buy some insurance? It's, you've already established sort of a rapport and sort of a sense of need. And a sense of, kind of a little bit of expectation of what that conversation is going to consist of, and really what the client is looking for. And on that level, because again, that was kind of, where I had a stronger background in the military life, right? I mean, to compare the two, if I would sit down with a subordinate, there was already an expectation of, what that conversation was going to be about. And we were able to connect, on a much deeper level in those settings. So that sort of translates forward, having those centers of influence, being able to, partner with. In fact, one of my partners that I work with now, a major center of influence, is a P&C agency that's based out of Richmond, Virginia. They have a very good referral partnership with me, with their clients. We actually are getting ready to do a series of dinner seminars, where we're going to talk about the benefits of life insurance and annuities for retirement planning and mortgage protection and, wealth building and generational wealth. So it's really been a catalyst to put me, in these connected relationships with people that are able to sort of catapult my business. And that was a successful model before. I think it's definitely proven to be a successful model going forward.
Love it.
I love it. So as we kind of wrap up our session here, Dan, I'd love to hear what advice, if you could go back to yourself like a year ago. I mean, you've really accelerated your 5-year plan, as we've talked about, but a year ago, when you're just getting started with this, if you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would say without question, you got to believe in yourself. I think in the beginning, it took me a little while before I really took this seriously. Even when you have that conversation with close friends and family, hey, I just took a job in the financial services industry. What is their initial reaction? Oh yeah, okay, whatever. But
most people have that experience. Yeah,
exactly. And so that doesn't help, your confidence. But it's a matter of believing in yourself. If this is really something that you feel, that you have a gift and that you have the ability to, and the desire, really more than anything, to help people with, it's all about believing in yourself, and it's all about just going full speed, on it. It's, not holding back and understanding that you don't have all the resources. You can't do it on the cheap. You have to invest in yourself and invest in your business, and just know going forward that you're giving it everything you got, and it's gonna pay off in the end.
Good advice.
That's so key, and that's something, it's tough, right? Like, as someone new, the industry or new agent, like, something I don't have a ton of experience in, or it's new. And that belief is something that like, hey, sometimes I got to believe before it's happened, right? And the confidence and the belief comes from taking that action to get the results, right? And so I love that. I love having that belief and that being what kind of pushes you forward to do the things that really need to happen in order to make that a reality. So I love the fact that you've been able to craft and mold your vision to reality. And so I'd love to know two things, like what's next for Victory X Financial and kind of next on the radar for some of the goals that you want to accomplish there. And then where can people find or connect with you, and who's a good connection for you?
Sure. So we've got some great plans that we were working on, towards the end of last year for this year. A few of them are already in motion. We just launched a pretty good size ad spend campaign on Facebook. So if folks are following all the insurance, ads coming across their feed, they might actually see a familiar face here pretty soon. Like I said, we've got a bunch of seminars that we're in the process. In fact, I've got a trip planned tomorrow up to Richmond to start kind of planning that out with their agency to do a bunch of seminars. And then, we plan to grow and expand. I've got a few other partnerships right now with, some other industry partners, digital marketing agencies, P&C agencies, lending agencies that I've kind of incorporated into this. We actually call it Vet Biz, is our kind of our little program name for it. Clients or anybody that's interested can find the information on our website. It's victoryxfinancial.com. Of course, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. My contact information is on there. They can just email me. It's daniel@victoryxfinancial.com. And happy to answer any questions. I tell clients, we've got a YouTube channel, in fact, too. I haven't done much with it here in the last couple months, but plan to get that started again. We have a video series that we've been doing on Facebook called Financial Fridays, where we look at individual IUL and annuity policies for veterans. And, we just encourage folks to check it out. Check out the Facebook page and, view some of our content. And, if it's something that you feel like you could benefit from, then, please feel free to reach out. I've got presence in some of the veteran-owned business groups on Facebook, and just encourage clients to reach out. And even if we don't do business, I'm just in it to help veterans protect their families and their financial futures.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dan, for taking the time. Join us today. Absolutely have loved the conversation. I know it's full of really, really amazing things for the listeners to kind of hear this journey, and look forward to continued conversations with you next time on here, and what the next steps have looked like in that journey there as well. Elle, anything?
Thank you so much, Dan, for being on. This has been such a great conversation. I know I've been making mental notes. I believe our listeners and viewers have, I'm sure, gotten a ton out of this. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being on with us. And thank you to all of our listeners that have tuned in with us today.
Thank you. We'll catch you next time on the Modern Insurance Agents Podcast.
Thanks, everyone.